So, we're talking about sacred space for a few weeks, and the whole idea of sacred space is one that people can use in all different ways, and I've encountered many people who would certainly not call themselves religious, in fact often deliberately refuse to use the language of religion and refuse to accept any form of religion, church at all, faith at all. And yet, when we go into St. Luke's church, the bombed out church, and we do a little meditation there, no mention of God, anything like that, and yet a number of them will say, this is a sacred space. There is something about some places which are referred to as thin places, aren't they? Places where heaven and earth are very close together. I don't know why I'm going like that, could be like that. Or as T.S. Eliot said, a place where prayer has been valid. A place where somehow the prayer has seeped into that place. And just as an aside, there is a so-called public consultation going on about St. Luke's, the bombed out church, at the moment. If you would be so kind as to go onto the bombed out church website and register your thoughts about we must keep this in the public domain and not sell it to a developer, that would be really, truly excellent. So please do that. So we are used to, maybe accustomed to the idea that sacred space is a place where you can go, and some of us are more sensitive to than others, but we've probably all had at some point that sense of, wow, this is a place which just seems special, sacred, set apart. I'm guessing probably all of us have had that experience at one time or another. But I want to talk today about a rather different sacred space, and that is the space within us. Could we have our two readings, please? One is from the Gospel that we might recognise, and one is from another collection of the sayings of Jesus called the Gospel of Philip. So they are on your notice sheet.
Matthew 6, 5 to 7. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. When you are praying, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words.
Gospel of Philip. The teacher said, "My Father lives in secret. He has said, enter into your chamber, close the door, and pray to your Father who is there in secret." This means in your inner being, that which is inside, in the secret of all, is fullness. Beyond it is nothing. It contains all.
Thank you. Go into your room in secret. The room which, in one of the sayings of Jesus, is the inner being, often called the heart in many traditions. Let me read to you a little quote from Lawrence Freeman, who, in his book, Jesus, the Teacher Within, he says, "The heart is the universal term used by spiritual traditions to designate that centre of consciousness where all ways of knowing are perfected by being integrated and harmonised. It's where sense becomes spiritual, where imagination becomes insight. In the heart, my self-knowledge and my knowledge of God are completely in harmony. The harmony found beyond me and mine. It is where knowledge is love and questions are prayer." That's a quote from the current leader of the World Community for Christian Meditation, who has discovered, as many mystics down the ages have discovered, that actually the place to encounter God is in the inner room of your heart, meaning heart in the spiritual sense rather than the organ that pumps blood around your body, important though that is. But if this is something that Jesus tells us to do, and I firmly believe that it is, and so did many people down the centuries, so does the whole world community of Christian meditation today, how on earth do we do it? And the answer is the word we come to think about, meditation. People will use different words for this, sometimes contemplation, though I think that's something slightly different, as I'll explain later. But meditation often has a very bad name, doesn't it? There's this sense of navel-gazing, or sitting around, often on pot, going, isn't life beautiful? That's not what meditation is. We are seeking to rest in the inner room of our hearts. And in the Christian tradition, as in many, many other traditions, we will often also have a mental focus. And often that is a prayer word or a mantra in other traditions. And in the founding of the World Community for Christian Meditation, a man called John Main, who at that time was a diplomat, learnt to meditate in the Far East and was given this prayer word, Maranatha, which he later discovered was an ancient Christian prayer in Aramaic, meaning "Come Lord." And so the world community uses that. I use that. But there are many others. Some people use Jesus. Some people use peace, or Ruach, which means spirit. And we say that word, not using many, many words, but with the simplicity that Jesus talked about. Don't heap up empty phrases. Just stick to your one word and use it as your focus. But is it Christian? Many people say to me, how do you reconcile this whole idea of meditation with being a Christian? Surely, if you're meditating, you're opening yourself to, I don't know, some sort of demons. My colleagues, my ex-colleagues, I should say, in the team I used to work in, which is highly evangelical, were all deeply worried by me, as you can imagine. I was very worried by them, I can tell you. But my understanding, our understanding, I think, for the most of us at St. Bride's, is that God is not some presence out there that you have to placate, that you have to say the right prayers to and manipulate in order for things to happen. God is a presence within. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. This is where you find the kingdom of God. This is where you find the divine presence. Not to say the divine presence isn't everywhere, yes. But today we are particularly thinking about that divine presence within us. Meditation is not the property of any one faith tradition. All faith traditions meditate in one way or another. And we can talk at another time about the whole history of Christian meditation, starting with Jesus, I guess, and the desert fathers and mothers, and going on from there through the monastic traditions. But what we're going to do first is we are actually going to do some. Is that okay? Now, if you find that this is just not you at all, that's all right. This is not imposing anything on you. But I suggest that we do actually try it and see what happens. This will only be a short meditation because we don't have it all day. And I will guide you, not in a sense of a visualization, but just in just how to be. There will be some times of guidance and some times of silence as well. So if you would like to sit with feet on floor and your back against the back of the chair, insofar as you can. These chairs are not ideal. The idea is to be in a sort of alert and dignified position, with your hands loose on your thighs or on your lap, whatever is comfortable to you. So to allow ourselves just to settle down, find a place where we're going to be able to maintain stillness for about, well, a bit under 10 minutes, won't be 10 minutes. But just so we can be quiet and still. If you're holding anything, if you'd like to put it down on the floor, that would be great. And at the end of that time, I will sound a bell so you know when the end is. You needn't be worried about looking at watches. So gently closing your eyes if you haven't done so already, and coming to an awareness of your body first of all. Noticing the firmness of the floor beneath your feet, of the chair beneath your thighs and your back, fully supporting you. Your head resting at the top of your spine, nicely balanced. Becoming aware of any places in your body where you feel any particular tension. Acknowledging it's there and seeing if you can perhaps make a little movement, perhaps in your shoulders, just to let that tension go. Noticing, how is your face? Are you frowning? Letting the muscles soften and relax. Coming to an awareness of your breath. Not trying to control it or change it, just noticing the sensations of the breath in your body. The coolness of the air as it enters the nostrils, feeling it at the back of the throat. Little movements of the rib cage. Perhaps the rise and fall of your belly, your lower abdomen. Knowing that your breath is an anchor for you. You can always come back to your breath. And if you like, very gently beginning to sound in your mind a prayer word. Perhaps today we'll use Maranatha, Ma-ra-na-tha. Just allowing the syllables to sound in your mind. And any time you find your mind wandering, your thoughts distracted, just gently bringing it back to your word, to your breath. There is no success or failure in meditation. You simply are. Simply breathing, being. And every time your mind wanders, gently escorting it back to Maranatha. Just I invite you to spend a moment just thinking about how that experience was for you. Think about what happened for you in that particular 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And then maybe turn to your neighbour and just share 2 minutes. What was going on for you? I'd try and stick to what actually happened for you during those few minutes, in 2s or 3s, just quickly buzz. Sorry to cut you short, but this is only a short time that we have. If we had other opportunities, that would be great, but we don't. But we have other opportunities on a Wednesday. Chill out, should you wish to. So what happened, first of all, apart from the sheer unfamiliarity of sitting still for 8 minutes, somebody telling you to do that? For most people, it's distractions. Is that what happened? Yeah. All of a sudden, mind goes AWOL. Either something happens in our bodies, we suddenly get an itch or something, or a sound happens, a car goes by or a police siren or something, and we immediately, our minds respond to that. And that is absolutely normal. We're primates who have evolved to notice what is going on and to make patterns so that as soon as one thing occurs to our brain, something else will hook in and a car will go by and you'll think, oh gosh, I must go take the car for an MOT or something like that. Because our minds are like that. Minds do not empty. This is one of the great fallacies when people talk about meditation. Minds don't empty. Primate, at least our mind. My mind does occasionally empty. That's usually when I'm trying to tell somebody something. But I goes, what was I talking about? I don't know. We've evolved to be the primate who's, looking for the right fruit or the potential mate or the actual enemy or the unexpected leopard. We're looking for those things. Our minds do that. And in meditation, all the practice is simply noticing when our minds have gone AWOL and bringing them back to our prayer word. That's why the prayer word, the mantra, is so helpful, because it then becomes a focus and something to come back to. You can use your breath instead. Simply come back perhaps to counting your breath. Whatever is right for you, just simply come back to that mental focus. The second thing that usually happens, usually when you meditate for a bit longer than just 8 minutes, is you might get other thoughts coming in. Thoughts which are a bit more deep-seated, which will often be about either the past, something that happened which is still stressing you. You'll start replaying, I do this all the time, replay conversations in my head. I should have said so and so. Or rehearsing the future. So while I'm meditating, I'm thinking, now at the end of this meditation, I've got to say this and I've got to do that, especially if I'm teaching. So you have those moments of just replaying the past, rehearsing the future, or responding to the present, to distractions in the present. And all those things can take us away from our prayer word, take us away from the meditation and into just daydreaming. There's nothing wrong with daydreaming, do it all the time. But when we want to meditate, we seek not to respond, not to ruminate on those things, not to follow those thoughts, but to come back as soon as we recognise that's what's happening. Come back to the mantra or whatever we're using as a focus, which might be a visual focus for some people. Some people meditate with eyes open and are looking at something. It might be a cross, might be a candle, might be a picture, might be anything. Whatever will help you to focus is what's important. And deeper still, particularly if you sometimes do a guided visualization and you allow thoughts to sweep over you, some stuff comes up during meditation which can be painful. Deep things that you didn't even realise were there, stuff that you haven't dealt with that maybe you need to deal with. And I think often this is where meditation can get its bad reputation in some churches or some Christian traditions. People say, oh, you'll let the demons in. I think if you meditate, what happens is the demons, if you want to call them that are already there, have a chance to surface. And these are things that you need to deal with. And meditation isn't the place to do that. And if that happens to you, and you find in a meditation or a prayer time, whatever it may be, that you suddenly find yourself overwhelmed by a deep emotion of sadness or fear, whatever it might be, that's when you actually need to come out of that meditation and to come back to an anchor. That's why your breath is a good anchor for you. So you can come back to the sensation of breath at your belly, or if that is not comfortable for you, if you have some trauma in your body, might be some other part of your body. I know a lady who, when she had trauma from her childhood about eating and digestion generally, she couldn't concentrate on her breathing at her belly, she could concentrate on her knees. That was a safe space for her. She could just focus on her knees, and then she was okay. She would let the thoughts go, and then she could come back to a meditation. You do not have to sit with really hard emotions. What you do need to do, maybe, is work out where they're coming from with some help. A spiritual director, perhaps, a counsellor, a friend down the pub, whatever it might be that is right for you. These things can come up in meditation. They can be quite painful. But you realise after a while of meditation, there is no goal, there is no success or failure. Meditation is simply this practice of sitting still, and every time your mind wanders, bringing it back to whatever your focus is. But why would we meditate? I think the primary reason we meditate is to make that space for God in our lives, to recognise the divine presence within, to recognise that God is not some big judge with a big book or just a big cuddly teddy bear. God is a presence within us. We have that divine Christ consciousness within us. We can dwell in that deep knowledge when we meditate. It doesn't happen all the time. It's often what people call contemplation, this sense of coming face to face with this divine presence, and yet that divine presence is within me. It's what the mystics might call union with God. And perhaps that's the goal of meditation, if it has a goal at all, is to make space to allow that to happen. And it won't happen all the time, but just sometimes there will be that moment which is somehow infinite of God and myself, we are one, the universe and I, we are one. And it is a most amazing feeling, and changes the way you are, changes the way you look at the world. You can't force that, but meditation is that one way of responding to what Jesus said about stay awake, stay alert, keep oil in your lamps. This is one way of doing it, actually being ready for that moment of union. And it changes our way of being in the world. We become gradually gentler and kinder people. It has health benefits, and there's been a lot of meditation studies done which show that actually it lowers blood pressure, it does all sorts of things which are helpful physically as well as emotionally. And it creates that little space for our true selves to be disentangled from this ego which is constantly wanting to control everything. It gives us that little distance to say, who am I really? To allow our true self to blossom within us. Meditation, I think, is the key to living well, to doing better, to being in the world in a way that is kind and generous to the world and to ourselves. But like everything else that is good, it needs practice. Can't just meditate for 7 minutes, think, right, done it now, that's it. Needs practice, preferably daily. The World Community for Christian Meditation actually recommends 20 to 30 minutes twice a day. I try. My mind goes AWOL, as usual. But it does make you a different person, gradually and slowly, but practice is good. So if anybody's around on a Wednesday at 5:30, we do moving meditation, and then we do sitting meditation. Talk to me after it's everything that's on the notice sheet. We're going to do another form of meditation now, and John is going to play. If you look on your notice sheet, you will see, and you can look once, you will see that our second song is called Slowly Blooms the Rose Within. Those of you who've been on pilgrimage will know this. Okay, you've seen it now. It's on your notice sheet, not the service sheet. Okay, the words are slowly blooms the rose within. Slowly blooms the rose within. Those are the words. So now you've seen it, you can put it down. And we're going to sing. And as we sing, I invite you to close your eyes, sing the words meditatively, slowly and quietly, making up whatever harmonies you like, and to visualize perhaps that rose, that flower, slowly unfurling within yourself, the flower, the rose of God's presence within. The kingdom of God is within you like a rose.